So as you may know, we are in the midst of a preaching series. Last week, Father Matthias kind of introduced the preaching series on our core values as a parish. And if you haven't heard his homily, I encourage you to go back sometime this week and listen to it. That way you get sort of the full message. You can go to the website, right on the homepage, there's a link on the top that says homilies. You can click on that and find his homily from last week there. And he spoke of our core values. One of them is I am third, which is a way of speaking about the strong sense of service in this parish. It's one of the first things that I noticed when I came here a little over a year and a half ago. There is this very strong desire in our parish to serve the needy in all of these many different ways in our community around us. And another core value is family, or as we've decided to phrase it, unconditional belonging. That we are not just a big institution or a nonprofit, but we truly are a family here at St. Patrick. And our core strategies, first of all, seeking the lost, encountering the love of God, forming intentional disciples. And you may be asking yourself, why bother with all of this, Father? What's with all of these core values and strategies? Isn't this all just talk? And to be honest, I'm kind of sympathetic to that because I'm not particularly strategically minded. So when we have these meetings and talk about these sort of things, that's kind of what I'm really thinking to myself. Like, why are we bothering with all of this? Like, let's do something a little more concrete. But what I've begun to realize is that this stuff really does matter. Taking the time to try to articulate what it is that we really value here as a parish helps all of us strive for something concrete. And it helps us keep each other accountable. Because if we're all just doing our own thing and it's not really clear what the goal or the purpose is, we could spread our energies and our attention in all sorts of different directions and not really get anywhere. So that's why we're doing this. That's why we're devoting this entire preaching series just to one of our core values, and that's family. So last week, Father Matthias kind of introduced all of this and gave the big picture. And now, today, I want to speak about family in a very concrete way. What does it mean for us here at our parish to be a family? And to start, I just want to try to dispel a way of misunderstanding this, because already in the last week we've heard some complaints from some parishioners that's coming from a way that's misunderstanding this core value of family. And these sorts of things could happen again, so I think it's helpful for all of us to just talk about this for a moment. So what we heard last week was that a parishioner was upset that we didn't allow them to use a certain part of the church. You know, we have all sorts of rooms in the basement, we have the whole building across the street, and there are lots of people that want to use these spaces for their different events. And the challenge is, this is such a big parish that often there are different groups that both want the same space at the same time. And so, because of that, Father Matthias and I and the parish staff, we have to make some difficult decisions at times. Who gets to use this space? And of course, no matter how you make the decision, someone is going to be upset about it, and that's the hard part. But this person came to us and said, what about that core value you just preached about? Unconditional belonging, family. It seems pretty hypocritical that you would talk about that but not actually live it out. Now, I wish we could give everyone the space that I wanted. But the truth is, with a parish this big, and the parish is growing, there's so much going on. We have 3,500 families registered at this parish. It simply is not possible to give everyone the space that they want sometimes. And the same thing happens in their own families back home, if you think about it. You know, I'm from a big family. There are 10 of us. And I remember we would often fight over who got which bedrooms in the house. And there was one particular bedroom that wasn't even all that special, but for some reason we always fought over that one. And then, even if you didn't get that one, then inside another bedroom we'd fight over who got which bed. Now, we didn't just have double bunk beds, we had triple bunk beds. My brother actually made one himself. It was pretty cool. And for some reason, we always fought over who got the top bunk. That was like prime real estate up there. Which also didn't really make much sense because it was so high up that when you got up in the morning, you'd hit your head on the ceiling. But in any case, I always wanted that one. And so my parents, God bless them, they had to pretty much constantly have to settle these little disputes among us. And sometimes there was no simple way of resolving that. And it doesn't mean that we weren't a good family. It's just part of the dynamics of what go on in a family. And the same thing happens here at our parish. And it's not a contradiction of this core value of family to have to make some of those tough decisions at times. And here's another example that came up this week. Someone was upset that they weren't able to be a part of a particular group at the parish because that group had certain expectations for all of its members, and this person wasn't able to fulfill those expectations. So then they came to the priest and they said, what about that core value, unconditional belonging, family? Why don't we actually live that out? But again, if you think about it, of course these groups have to have certain expectations. Whatever it is, whether it's the altar servers or the musicians or the lectors or being on parish council or all these things, they all understandably have certain expectations for what you have to do to be a part of this. And it's not inconsistent with this family value to have those expectations. And once again, the same thing happens back home. When I was little, I always wanted to be the babysitter. Imagine if you had a 2-year-old that wanted to be the babysitter for the night. They might be completely convinced that they have all of the necessary qualities to fill that role. But the truth is, they simply don't. And so the parents are not going to allow them to take that role. And sometimes a similar sort of thing can happen here. So those are some ways that we can misunderstand that core value of family. So now let's talk about what this core value does mean for us, how we are to understand it. And the first thing I want to focus on is that as a family, we all should strive to have just a basic level of kindness towards one another. Most of all when we're at Mass, but at all of our parish events. Sometimes we can settle into this attitude where I just got to get to church. I just want to check off that box on my list so I know that I did it. I don't want to see anybody. I don't want to talk to anybody. And that seat that I want better be there. But when we have that attitude, that pretty quickly leads to some just rude behavior towards others. And imagine if you had that attitude at a family event. Let's say you're going to Thanksgiving dinner at Grandma's house. I just want to get there. I don't want to see anybody. I don't want to talk to anybody. I better have that seat at the front of the table that I like. And if I don't, I'm leaving. No. That's not how a family treats one another. And that shouldn't be how we treat each other here. So let's strive for just some basic kindness towards one another. When we're coming in and out of the parking lot. When we're talking to one another in the lobbies. Just greet people maybe that you don't know or the person sitting in front of you. Could exercise some pew hospitality, as Father Matthias said. Someone perhaps comes in late and they're looking for a seat and you have all these seats on the inside of the pew but you're on the end. Rather than making them climb over you, you could just kind of scooch into the middle and let them take the end of the pew. Or what about making a habit of looking out for others who maybe look a little out of place. Maybe they're visitors and they've never been here before. Maybe they don't really know anybody. And so what can happen is we all just stick to our little groups that we're comfortable with, and then this person is just there, kind of left on their own. I've certainly been there. It's not any fun, right? You come there, you don't know anybody, it's kind of lonely, and they're all talking to themselves and no one will talk to you. Let's try to minimize that by all of us being intentional about looking for those people and simply reaching out. Hello, how are you? My name's Father Joe. Where are you from? Or whatever it may be. And let's strive to be patient with one another. Let's strive to be patient with all of the kids that come to Mass. Now, Father Matthias and I are so pleased that we have so many young kids coming to Mass. Amen? This is something we should all be happy about because this is the future of our church. And I would much rather have a church full of crying babies than a church that's quiet and peaceful and in 20 years has to close because they have no new members. And I know that the kids at times it can be distracting and all that, but let's really strive for patience with one another and avoid giving any sort of dirty looks to those young parents who are trying to keep their kids behaved. Let's just be understanding of them. And we have some people that come to our parish that have some disabilities, and some people that maybe aren't able to sit still or to keep quiet like other adults. And rather than just sort of staring or making them feel uncomfortable, let's just welcome them at our parish. I have people in my family who have disabilities, and it's just part of that family dynamic that you just take them where they're at, and everyone is understanding of them. So another important way that we live out this core value of family is that we spend time together. As you know, as Catholics, we have what's called the Sunday obligation to be at Mass every single Sunday. And part of that, as I've preached on in the past, is this need to give ourselves that spiritual food by receiving God's Word and receiving Him in the Eucharist. This is how our souls stay alive. But another part of this is that we need each other. If we are truly a family, we need to spend time together. We need to show up. Imagine if your family only got together for an hour once a month, or maybe every couple of months, or maybe only at Christmas and Easter. That wouldn't be much of a family, would it? And the same is the case here at our parish. If we truly are a family, we need to spend time together. Most of all, by coming to Mass every Sunday. But even beyond that, there are all sorts of activities that happen outside of Mass. We have the chili cook-off every year. We have the family game night a couple of times a year. We have the parish festival coming up in June. There are all sorts of things that you could come to. And it doesn't even have to be actually church events. There's this beautiful thing that can begin to happen where we begin to form small communities. Maybe you get to know a few families that you have a lot in common with, and you begin to spend time together during the week. Go to the park together, or whatever it may be. One of our music groups, after they rehearse every week, they all go out together to Stouts on Main Street just to spend time together. So if we truly are a family, that means we spend time together. That means we show up. And lastly, if we are a family, that means we're faithful to what we commit to. I told this guy that I would show up to the men's Bible study. I'm really not feeling like it because it's Saturday morning and I want to keep sleeping, but I'm going to be there because I said I would be there. Or I said that I would show up to this Mass to lecture, to read at Mass, or to be an altar server, or whatever. If we really are a family, part of being a family is being faithful to what we commit to. And lastly, being a family and being faithful and spending time together, part of this is showing up on time, right? Now, I try not to look at the back of the church during the beginning of Mass because there can be a lot of motion, a lot of people coming in during the beginning of Mass. And I totally get it. I've been there many times myself. There's a little more pressure to be on time now, so I'm better at being on time. But before I was a priest, it certainly happens. But all of us can really make an effort on this. And especially if it's sort of become a habit to show up 5 or 10 minutes late and it's not a big deal, no one's going to see me or whatever. No, if we are a family, that means we should show up on time and make an effort to be present to one another. So these are some of the practical ways that we can live out these core values. And as you can see, it's not just theoretical stuff. Once you begin thinking about it, this has very clear, concrete application in our daily life. And it's our hope that all of us will really allow this to sort of soak into what we think about parish life. So much so that if we see others not really living up to this, maybe you see someone being very rude to someone or yelling at some kids or whatever it may be, to have the courage to say, at our parish, we're a family. And as a family, we try to meet people where they're at, and we need to welcome these people here, or whatever it may be. It's our hope that all of us will keep each other accountable to this. This is not just sort of like a top-down mentality, like Father Matthias and I are going to be around watching everyone. No, this is for all of us, so that we can all live out this core value. And if we do this, and really ask the Lord for the grace during this season of Lent to live this out, God will bless this parish abundantly, and He will truly make us into His family, the family of St. Patrick Parish.